Hey everyone, I'm here with my dad here at his house. We're just doing we're gonna be doing videos of my dad, just from the start off with the earliest age you can remember to the very present of time. But right now we're gonna talk about when he was a little kid. Go ahead, Dad.
Okay, I used to remember my. I remember my grandma and my grandpa. They used to tell me a lot of stories about Mexico when they were there. And my grandpa used to be a villista.
What's a villista?
Well, it was
For
a
those that don't know.
well, villista was a man named Pancho Villa,
Mm-hmm.
and they call him villista because he had his own soldiers. They weren't they weren't like the government. They were against the government because
Like rebels.
rebels, yeah, but they weren't rebels either. They were just plain people that were poor, and the rich people, they were the federales, and what they did, they would take their land away from the poor people, and never treated them right. And Pancho Villa, one day he came home and those federales, they went down to his house, I guess, and they had a little farm, Pancho Villa, and they raped his sister and killed his mother and dad. And he must have been about, I guess, a teenager or something. And he grew up and he started his own army. He said, "We're going to fight against these guys. This is our land, and they can't take it." And they took it. So my grandpa used to tell me the story because he was in that army, Pancho Villa.
What was your grandpa's name?
His name was Refugio Beltran. His name was Refugio Beltran,
Okay.
and he was one of his soldiers. So they fought there, I guess, from the year of 1910 or something like that, till 1918, around there. It was like a civil war, something like that, in Mexico. And even though they fought all those years, they lost the Pancho Villa and them, but they gained respect from the government. And the government later on gave them back their land that they had robbed from them. So now in Mexico, you go down there, most of the old timers, they got land because the president of Mexico, back in the I think it was 1930s or around there, gave them back their land. And,
Wow.
and my grandfather fought there, and he used to tell me a lot of stories about it. My grandma, she was involved in it too, even though she wasn't a soldier, but she used to cook for them. And
For Pancho Villa's men?
yeah, they'd come down there and she'd had a big kettle, and she'd make all kinds of food, feed them all. And they were in Baja California, Lower California. That's now then it was Mexico, but now it's California, and so they lived a long life. Grandpa I think he was 84 when he died, and Grandma was in her 70s. Anyway, I used to enjoy just sitting there because, I was just a little kid.
What was your grandmother's name?
Margarita.
Margarita, and your grandpa was Refugio.
Refugio. Cuco, they used to call him Cuco.
Cuco.
Short. So it was, I learned a lot from my grandpa and grandma. So that's why I got a lot of grandkids, and they listen to stories that I tell them sometimes, and the way I look at them, they're good kids. They're growing up to be. Some of them are 18, and some are 15. Down there, 10 years old, and they already know how to handle themselves. Because our sons, Joe, and he teaches them right, and James, he teaches his kids right too, and they pay respect. So I'm glad for that. And this is my wife, Frances, and she also is a good woman. We've been married 50 years, and we got our family is known all over the place here in Oregon because of the boys. Because Joe's he's a servant of God. He's a preacher. He's a youth pastor, and the other young man, James, he's a computer guy. And he got his own office too. And my daughter, she's in Alaska. She's a pastor to a preacher too. And they got a big church over in Alaska. So they're all doing good, and they all know God. They believe in God, like we do. And it's always good to have something to back you up. And for us, our backup is the Lord, Jesus Christ. That's just a story that I always keep that in mind. My grandpa to me, he was like a hero.
Yeah. You said some stories that used to go visit him when you were younger. He was older at age, and he'd be working in the garden. And how would he respond to you, Dad? As a little kid, he was starting to lose his memory.
Yeah, we used to live about 3 miles away from him, and we used to walk to his house. Every Saturday we go down there. My mother would say, "Go visit Grandpa. They need your help." So Saturdays, me and my brother Frank used to walk over there, and we'd be coming, and he'd always say he didn't recognize us because he was pretty old, and he says, "Who's those Indians coming over there?" he thought we were Indians. And my grandma said, "They're not Indians. They're Cruz's sons." My mother's name was Cruz. Oh, Cruzita, yeah. That's Cuco and Pancho, Frank. Oh, see, and then he remembered it. And we go there, and they had about half an acre, and none but garden, and they were old already. And we think, I said, "Give me that hoe," and I'd hoe the weeds out, and Frank would get a shovel, dig things out for him. So we used to go down there all the time, and then we'd stay there all day, then walk back home. So that's how we were brought up. My mother used to go see your grandma and grandpa. They need your help. You ain't doing nothing here now. Go.
Yeah.
We'd walk 3 miles. Well, we had a lot of fun though. Yeah, I was only about 10 years old, and Frank was 13 or something like that. So it's great to look back. I imagine Joe, he's probably got some stories of himself.
Yeah.
Because he was since he was little, he always had friends and relatives that he used to visit.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was telling me that he used to mow the lawn and all that. He had about 5 lawns he used to mow. He was making money, man, on the side.
Yeah, just ride my bike from the west side of Toppenish to east side where Aunt Rosie lived. It must have been about a 3 mile, 4 mile, maybe 3 mile ride, and then go from there to Aunt Margaret's house right across the next door. Then ride my bike to Aunt Linda's and cut her grass, and then go to Grandpa's, and Grandpa's had the biggest yard of all of them, and cut his grass, and then I'd go home, make my $20.
Yeah, you got paid every time. I said, "Well, you're lucky, because when I was his age, they never paid me."
Yeah.
And if they did, my mom would get mad. "You take that money back."
And then I come home, and everybody had the running lawnmowers, and we had a push mower. Well, that didn't last very long. Dad got a gas one not too long after that.
Yeah.
I think the push mower broke or something, fell apart.
Yeah.
All right, Dad, I'm gonna check out here. We're gonna try to do this as much as I can. Little documentaries of little stories and stuff like that. And all right, I'll be back soon.
Thank you.
But Refugio Jose Franco Sr., known as Joe Franco, before he got saved, they know him as the Bear, but we know him as Dad.
Amen.